At 3:30 in the morning, new forces were already moving toward the Persian Gulf. Not away from the war, but into it. And just hours later, a message appeared. The United States was very close to its objectives, and the war could soon begin to wind down. So which is it? Is this conflict ending, or expanding in ways no one is saying out loud? That is the question no one is answering. How do you prepare to leave a war while sending more Marines into it? Here is what we actually know. The operation, widely referred to as Epic Fury, was designed to hit key Iranian military assets. Precision strikes, limited targets, clear goals, at least on paper. The focus was not full invasion. It was pressure, degrade capabilities, send a message, force a shift in behavior. But that is not the real story, because wars do not just follow plans, they react. In the early phase, reports suggested multiple strikes hit Iranian-linked infrastructure, missile sites, command nodes, logistics routes. Some estimates claimed thousands of targets were identified, but numbers in war are always uncertain. And that is where things change, because success is not just about what gets hit. It is about what survives. Iran did not collapse. There was no sudden regime change, no internal breakdown, no visible loss of control. Instead, it took the hits and stayed standing. And this is the part most people miss. Survival in this kind of conflict is not neutral. It sends a signal. If a country can take repeated strikes and still function, then the cost of escalation rises, not falls. Now look at the timing. While talk of winding down begins, more forces are being deployed. The USS Boxer Group is moving closer. Additional Marines are being positioned, not for retreat, for readiness. And that creates a contradiction. If objectives are almost complete, why reinforce? Why increase presence in the most sensitive choke point in the world? The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow stretch of water, but one of the most critical arteries on Earth. A huge portion of global oil passes through it every day, and even a small disruption can send prices soaring, which is exactly what is happening. But that is not the real problem. Because control of the strait is not just about ships. It is about pressure, threat perception, and timing. Iran does not need to fully block it. It just needs to make the world believe it could. Mines, fast attack boats, missile batteries along the coast, even limited harassment can create panic, and panic moves markets. So now step back. The United States says it is close to its goals, but it is reinforcing the region. Oil prices are rising, and allies are not stepping in. That last part matters more than it seems, because this was never meant to be a solo operation. There was an expectation of shared burden, NATO involvement, naval patrols, joint security, but that did not happen. Some allies hesitated, others stayed out completely. And this is where things shift again, because perception of unity is a weapon, and right now, that weapon looks weaker. Public frustration has already surfaced. Words like cowards have been used. And that kind of language does something dangerous. It exposes cracks, not just to the public, but to adversaries. Because if alliances look uncertain, deterrence weakens. And when deterrence weakens, risk goes up. So now we're left with a strange picture. A war that is winding down, without a ceasefire, a mission that is almost complete, without clear proof of strategic success, and a region that is becoming more tense, not less. And this is the part most people are not asking. What does success actually mean here? Is it destroying targets or changing behavior? Because those are not the same thing. If the goal was to force a political shift inside Iran, that has not happened. If the goal was to eliminate threats completely, that is unlikely in such a short time. If the goal was to send a message, then the response matters more than the strike. And the response, so far, has been survival, adaptation, patience, which leads to a deeper possibility. This is not an ending. It is a repositioning, a pause without saying pause, a way to step back without calling it a step back. But that raises one final question. If this really is the beginning of the end, then why does everything on the ground look like the beginning of something else? At 4:15 in the afternoon, oil markets reacted again. Not to an explosion, not to a new strike, but to uncertainty. Prices moved because no one knew what would happen next. And that tells you everything. This is no longer just a military situation. It is a perception battle. If the war is truly winding down, why does the risk feel higher? Because exits from conflict are not simple. They require clarity, signals, agreements. And right now, none of those are fully visible. There is no formal ceasefire, no signed framework, no public timeline, only a statement, very close to objectives. And that is where things get complicated, because close is not a strategy, it is a position. In military terms, being close to success can be the most dangerous moment. It creates pressure to declare victory. Before the full outcome is clear, before the long-term effects are understood, Ending a war is about controlling what happens after. Look at the current posture. More Marines moving into the region, naval assets holding position, air power still within range. This is not withdrawal, it is containment. And containment has a different goal, not to win completely, but to prevent escalation, to hold the line, to manage risk. But that only works if both sides accept limits. And right now, there's no clear sign of that. Iran has not signaled surrender. It has not changed its core stance. It has not agreed to new terms. Instead, it is watching, waiting, measuring. And this is where things shift again, because patience can be a strategy. If Iran believes the United States wants to step back, then it does not need to escalate. It only needs to endure. Let pressure build elsewhere. Let costs rise. Let political tension grow. And those costs are already visible. Oil prices are unstable. Shipping risk is rising. Insurance costs are climbing. Global markets are reacting. But that is not the real pressure point. The real pressure is political. Back home, every extended operation raises questions. What was achieved? What changed? What was worth the risk? And without clear answers, support becomes fragile. At the same time, allies are not fully aligned. Some are cautious, some are silent, some are unwilling to commit forces. And that creates isolation, which leads to a critical shift in strategy. If allies do not step in, then the United States must choose escalate alone or stabilize and step back. And neither option is clean. Escalation risks a wider conflict, regional spread, unpredictable retaliation. Stabilization risks looking like a partial outcome, not a decisive one. And this is the moment where narratives are shaped, not by facts alone, but by interpretation. One side can claim key targets were hit, capabilities were reduced, objectives were achieved, mission successful. The other side can claim the system survived, the leadership remained, the pressure was absorbed, no collapse, no surrender. So who won? That depends on what you believe the goal was. If the goal was destruction, then partial success is not full success. If the goal was signaling strength, then survival weakens that message. If the goal was avoiding a larger war, then the outcome is still uncertain. And this is the part most people do not realize. Modern conflicts are not always decided on the battlefield. They are decided in what comes after, in stability, in influence, in perception. Right now, the United States appears to be searching for an off-ramp, a way to reduce intensity without appearing to retreat, a way to claim progress without triggering further escalation. But off-ramps require cooperation, and silence is not cooperation. So the Marines move closer, not to attack immediately, but to ensure options remain open, to respond if something changes, to show presence. Because in this region, presence is power. And that brings us to the real takeaway. This is not a clean ending. It is a controlled uncertainty, a situation where both sides are avoiding the next step, while preparing for it at the same time. If the current path holds, the conflict may slowly cool, without a formal agreement, without a clear resolution. But if one move goes too far, if one signal is misread, if one incident escalates, then everything resets. And that is why this moment matters more than the strikes themselves. Because this is where wars either end quietly or begin again in a much bigger way. If you found this breakdown useful, consider subscribing.